My name is Drees. I'm in the event business for about 15 years now. I worked most of the time for the Wacken Open Air in Schleswig-Holstein. And in 2015, I had an accident with a motorcycle, which made me to a wheelchair user. And so it was kind of a hard thing to, it comes from my heart to support people with disabilities on festivals and events. And so I always raised the inclusion project of the Wacken Open Air to a higher level. And since last year, I belong to the Initiative Barrierefrei Feiern, and we support organizers of festivals and concerts and events and clubs everywhere in Germany in accessible matters. That's it. And I was told that you're advanced level in all the workshops here. So I would like to get to know why you're here, what's your name, and if you maybe have a disability or not, and where you're from. Are you from the event business or right?
So hi, I'm Karen. And yes, I've just been recently, Bang On has been Eilish's project for going on how many years now? 6 years, and this is my first time being brought on board. And and specifically to be in the area of learning more about inclusivity for people with disabilities at events. So that's my specific area. I'm from Canada originally, and I live here for 13 years. And I don't have a disability that I know of.
So you don't have to tell me if, but
okay.
Right?
Sorry. Yeah.
I am Momo. I am a musician based in Berlin, and I'm mostly playing my own shows, but I've been organizing some concerts, mostly for myself, and I was also working in design before I was doing music, and I recently was more confronted with the topic of accessibility, also on festival posters, for example. I learned some cool stuff, and I thought it would be really interesting to hear a bit more about it, because I really don't know so much so far about it.
Okay.
Hello, my name is Lynn. I live in Cologne. I am a musician myself, but I'm also working for a program that's supporting artists like newcomer bands to get out there from North Rhine-Westphalia, and I organize some showcases at festivals, also international, and I also work in a Flinter network where we organize concerts, and I'm thinking about how to be more inclusive. And so I heard that there are a lot of good organizations like what you just told us about in Berlin, but I haven't really found anything like in the area in Cologne that I know of. So I'm just very interested to get to know more about the possibilities to plan events more accessible for everyone, and that's why I'm here.
Cool. So that's a perfect mix. We have some musicians and some organizers. It's cool. It could be that there's something you know better than me, then just tell me, and I'm open for critics. All right, so let's start. I just want to know from you, what is the difference between accessibility and inclusion? What do you think?
May I?
Yeah.
I think that if something is accessible, that's the first step, but that doesn't mean that you're really included. Because sometimes you can get to places, but then maybe you still don't feel as part of the group. Mm-hmm. Maybe like this.
Anybody else? That's good, yeah? Okay. You don't have to read it if you don't want, but inclusion is more a society thing. You know, we can reach inclusion only if you have an accessible area or accessible society. Otherwise, there can't be any inclusion. It's pretty hard to translate all the text now in German, so I leave it like it is. Yeah. So why should we integrate people with disability on events? I know there are a lot of questions at the beginning, but we start like that. Maybe you know.
There is absolutely no reason to exclude them. I think it just it should be possible for anyone who really wants to go to a show, concert, festival to also participate in it. So yeah, it's kind of a tough question, a turnaround thing. I think mostly when people are being excluded, it's probably because it's easier to organize it or when people don't really know about it. But really, I think it's kind of sad to not have a diverse audience just because it's not accessible for someone to get there or to enjoy their time there or feel like they're included.
Yeah. That's good. We have rules like the UN Behindertenrechtskonvention. We have the Musterversammlungsstättenverordnung, and we have those norms organizers should care about. But the reality is nobody controls it, and as long as nobody controls it, they don't care about those rules. So what you said, why should we integrate people with disabilities in events, is to avoid exclusion, thank you, to avoid exclusion, to support diversity, to support inclusion, to support equality, thank you very much. And people in the society is always in their heads are so many barriers. If we show them what inclusion means, they lose those barriers in their head. That's what I mean, you know? Yeah, and to make the society a little bit better. We always have the three words to get there, to get in there, and to get there around. And this is always on a, what I'm talking about is on the example of a festival without any infrastructure, like on an acre or on a like Tempelhof field or something, where normally isn't any infrastructure like here, okay? All right. The first thing we do is we have to have a direct work with the production of the festival, because they decide what can we do, how much does it cost. That's a big factor. And the main reason why many things doesn't work is how do I generate security for everybody. Often it's like, have you seen those ways for wheelchair users they put here? When we did this on the Wacken Open Air, we just can do it like 200 meters before, or we have to stop 200 meters before the stages. Because if in case of an emergency, those ways, people will stumble over the ways. And so it's a big security reason why we can't do the ways back up to the stages. And everybody has to know who we are. We have always the problem, well, not always, because we just had a really good show at the Tempelhofer Feld last weekend. People always don't know who we are, and so they don't. So we have to always go back to the production chief, have to tell him, hey, he doesn't know who we are, he don't want to hear what we're saying, and that's a big problem. That's why we are always doing a big production meeting and at the beginning of an event, so everybody knows who we are. And then we have to work together with all all parts of the event. So it is very far before the beginning, we have to work with the ticketing center. Is it possible to buy tickets? So is the website accessible? Can blind people read it on a screen reader? Is it an easy language? I hope that's the direct translation. Is it, do pictures have an audio description and all that stuff? Also the communication, and that's one thing most of the time, communication and marketing. We have to communicate as early as possible to the people with disability and as easy as possible. That's one big reason. We have always searched long ways on websites or have to use the telephone for a long time to get to know those informations you want to have. It's really good. Like Pop-Kultur has done it really good. On the main website, you see directly the button accessibility. But that's even like big companies like Eventim, or you have to search a long time to find the information you want to get. So like I told, we have to work together with the production, and a really important thing is the security. Because when you go on the event site and you have any problems or any questions, what's your first person you talk to? Yeah. If you have any problem.
Generally, any kind of security.
Yeah, right. So the main contact so the main contact person for everybody is a security person, and that's why we have to work directly with the security on the event together. They have to get our number. We have to have a walkie-talkie to talk directly to them, and we give them our mobile phone number so they can call us. Because the first problem starts at the accessible parking ground, and the second problem starts at the entrance. Can they go with that medical aid inside? Sometimes they have big bags because they need it for medical reasons. So that's something we can explain to the security. Yeah, that's all right. He can take it in. He can take this medical aid. You know, it's for wheelchair use. There's sometimes like little motorbikes you put on the wheelchair. We know what's safe on the campground or on a festival site, so we can talk to the security people. And it's one more thing. It can be kind of traumatic for the people with disability to have a bad experience to the security person, but it can also be a traumatic experience for the security. You know, if they get in struggle with the people with disability, the people with disability can be very, very angry about that, and the conclusion of it is that the security doesn't want to talk anymore to anybody with a disability. So that's even not what we want. So what I told is the traffic control. It comes together with the security. Of course, the ambulance is important, because when they have a specific medical problem, like someone who has epilepsy. So we have many people, it's just happened last weekend that we had someone with epilepsy, and the ambulance was kind of overwhelmed of it. And we know that guy, or we knew that guy, and we knew he's fine with it. We knew he had this epileptic, but it just happens 2 minutes, and then he stands up and says, "I'm all right, I'm okay." So we can talk to the ambulance. Yeah, of course, to get your wristband, the gastronomy, the sponsors. Often it's like, I'll show you later, that the wristband stand has no opportunity to get your wristband because it's up high there. For small people or people like me in a wheelchair, it's pretty difficult to get your wristband. And all the partners on the campground as well and on the festival side. What can we do before the festival start? We can give as much information as we can. So Initiative Barrierefrei Feiern made an icon system you see in the background. I come back later for it. I prefer doing a whole brochure where everything or where all the services are mentioned. Like in the beginning with the buying tickets, how can you declare your medical aid? How is the arrival? How is the campground? We had a Sanitätshaus, I'm sorry, I don't know. A medical aid service is the right word. We had a medical aid service on the campground. Where are the sanitaries? Where is accessible food stands or drink stands? Where is the ambulance? How do you get to the concerts? How do you get to the infield? How are the ways? Where is the room for quietness? So sometimes people have to come down, and that's why you need a dark room with no music, with no sounds and on. What do you have for people who can't hear? What do you have for blind people? Who are the contact persons you can call? And what are the emergency? What can you do in case of emergency? And of course a map. So we use those icon system, which organizers, if they work with us together, they can use this icon system. It's a completely new system, what we thought is important for people with disabilities when they get information about a festival or an event. So it's like you see the accessible toilet, it's an accessible camping ground, it's a gender-neutral toilet. Yeah, we also do awareness services. It's a accessible shower, it's a podest, for every stage. It's a station where you can charge your electronic Rollstuhl. It's a quiet room, services for people who can't hear, induction for people who have medical aid in their ear, You can use an induction where music is directly sent to your ear. Audio description, services for blind people, and what I told you before, when you have epileptical persons, when there's no lights, which, yeah. But the most important thing is to offer a sensitive surrounding. That's our main icons. We have our awareness icon and the sensitive surrounding icon. That's what I mean. You have to give a lesson to all security staff, to all contact persons on the event site. Everybody has to know who he has to call. If we are there, they can call us, but everybody has to know that some disabilities are not, you can't see all disabilities, they are transparent. Some people in a wheelchair can walk, but need a wheelchair as well. Some people are not completely blind. Some people, there are many, many reasons why someone without a disability maybe can't understand. And that's why we have to offer a sensitive surrounding. And these are some quotes from what I already heard when I was on an event. It's like, you doesn't look like you have a disability. You just walk. Why do you need the wheelchair? What kind of disability could that be? You are not that handicapped like you look like. Oh yeah, that's all good. This way is closed. Yeah, but then I can't go to the concert. Yeah, that's not my problem. End of the. Where do I have to go? I don't know. I'm just standing here. The campground is full. You have to go right somewhere else, and that happens very often. There is a accessible camping ground, which is right next to the stages, or which is very accessible. But then it's full, and they send them to a campground which is 5, 4, 6 kilometers away, which doesn't work if you have someone who uses a rollator or a wheelchair. So, like I said, the briefing and the sensitivity of the contact persons is the main thing you have to do when you plan an inclusive event. All right? And the second thing, when we work on the event, we are the awareness team for people with disabilities. They are very thankful when they have a direct contact person or someone who they can call, who they can talk to, and who can break barriers between the security personnel and the people with disabilities. Yeah, but an eye for barriers and the needs from people with disabilities we call us the experts in our own thing. Because when I got in my situation, I came in kind of a scene. I call it a scene, the scene of the people with disability. It was always like they called me, and someone in a wheelchair called me, yeah, I have this and this wheelchair, and yeah, I know that. And he was very comfortable with me, because he know there's someone who knows my needs. And as longer as I did it, I got to know more about what blind people need, what people with cognitive disabilities need. What they always told me what they need, and I just raised the inclusion concept of it. And now I have some pictures for you, and you can tell me what's the problem with it. Mm-hmm.
Of the stand, so that's not accessible.
Right? It's pretty easy now, but it's really a big problem. When you go to a festival, you don't just want to see the bands or just the music. A festival is much more than just the concerts. And the organizers always think about, yeah, how can we bring them to the concert and bring them back, and that's it. But if I go to a festival, I want to go to the side events, I want to go to the sponsors, I want to eat something, I want to go to the shops. And that's something nearly all organizers forget, that all those pagodes have to be accessible too. Because that's always an external company who's, or not always, most of the time it's an external company who is in charge for those stands and for food and drinks, and and there is no one who cares about the accessibility. And another one.
Maybe it's too high.
Yes, right.
So you can't really talk to them if you're in a wheelchair, or you're really short.
Right. Yeah, that's it. I just want to show you what we are looking for when we go over an event. It's those food trucks are very trendy the last 10 years, but they are really high. If there's a normal food stand, they're quite low. It would be even better if the drinks and food stands have lower board for people like me or for smaller people, but the food trucks are that much high that someone, that the persons in there have always come out and given my food, and it's not so that cool to talk to someone who is 2 meters above you. What's the problem with those things? Kabelbrücken in German.
I could imagine that you cannot go over them if you have a wheelchair, or if you are not, like, you also might miss them if you just walk over there.
Those normal cable bridges are formed like that. There are accessible cable bridges which are wider, and they are formed like that. So those are it's a really big barrier, because you have to lift your front wheels. I can do it, but I'm not always the status quo. So you have to lift it, and those bridges fit directly between here. And that means if you can't do this and push hard to stay like this on the cable bridge, you are stuck. The cable bridge is stuck between those wheels, and then you have to push, and the back wheels lift up, and then it can happen that people fall out of the wheelchair if they don't have stability in the stomach region. They can fall off the wheelchair, so they are not accessible. How about that? I just want to say, if someone sees which event that is, I don't want to shame the event. Yeah, shame the event. That's why they called us. That's where. All right. I don't even see what's happening there. It's a water station.
And it's also too high. Yeah, it would be too high.
Yeah, not the main problem. Okay, you can't drive under it. I always need tables. That's why accessible bathrooms always have a hand wash without a cupboard on it, because you have to go under it. If you don't, you have to do it like that, and then I can't reach the water supply. Okay. What's the problem here? It's a bit harder.
The door opening? Does it go or not?
Yeah.
I thought so too. I don't know how, if the door opens to the outside, then there's no way you can stand in front of it.
So there are some more problems about that. First of all, there's no handle, right? The second is, and it's hard to see, but the ramp stops, like if this is the floor of the toilet, the ramp stops here. So there is still a step between the ramp and the toilet. Yeah, you won't believe how often that happens. And the last thing is, if you go on the ramp and you open the door, it has to be opened to the outside, because if someone is in there and lies on the ground, it's not allowed that the door pushes against the person who's on the floor. But it has to be like that you still can go on the ramp and open the door. So the ramp is too small, and it has a step, and you have to call somebody to get the handle. Yeah, that has nothing to do with inclusion, So that's a bit harder. I'm sorry, it's more about for people with reduced mobility, because it's more visible, That's why I have.
Well, the seating doesn't seem to have any place for somebody who might have a chair to
pull up.
And
Yeah.
there would be something, but they just hung up the trash bins there.
Yeah, they did.
You know?
Yeah.
So that's something those beer garnitures are always good for wheelchair users because you can always use the head of it. But if you put those trash bins there, you can't use it anymore. Another thing we have a focus on is where are the podests placed. Often they are placed like really in the back or on the side so that the sound is pretty bad. Here it's a good place because it's right at the front. It's not far away from the stages, and the sound is pretty good. That makes a big difference if you sit like the stage is there and you don't have the sound and then the concert is just boring. So you have to place the podest right in the crowd, right in the audience. Yeah, and like you saw outside, mobile ways. That's what I told you before. The last 200 meters before the stages, it's like that. It's for security reasons where you can't do your accessibility to 100%. Sometimes it just doesn't work with a security concept. And this is also something we're talking to organizers to. What do they think about wheelchair drivers who are doing crowd surfing? That's a big problem because nobody wants to forbid it, but if you see the girl here in the front, to get a wheelchair driver from the crowd surfing safe and to the front of the stages, it needs about 4, 5, maybe 6 people of the security team to put him safe down. During this time, they can't get other people who are doing crowd surfing, but the crowd don't stop pushing, if you have a metal festival, of course, don't stop pushing people to the front. And then it can happen that somebody else falls down without any help to get saved down, and that can
Ends up that they need to be in a wheelchair, maybe.
Huh?
And it ends up that maybe they need to be in a wheelchair.
Yeah, it could end like that, right? We are always trying that everybody can do it, but we understand if the organizer says no way, we don't have that much personnel. So and this is the medical aid service we had on the Wacken Open Air. It's a local company which provides services like a charging station, like repair service for wheelchairs or other medical aid, like getting new oxygen for people who needs oxygen. They marked medical aids like a hand bike that they can go on the event site. And it's always a meeting point for the people with disabilities. And now we come to you two. Do we now have, if we did all this, and do we then have a inclusive festival?
Like a festival that's based around inclusivity specifically, or just that includes inclusivity?
If we have, if it's fully accessible for the audience, do we have an inclusive festival? No.
Not sure, because I've never known to really look for it before.
Yeah, because there's one more thing, backstage in crew. If you have someone who's in the crew with a disability, you can use as an organizer the skills of your employee with disability, because he has the eye for barriers, and he he can tell you what is I'm missing the word. What is wichtig, important? What is important to get people on stage? Because when we get artists with disabilities on stage, you reach visibility for people with disability. Because then the audience sees, all right, there's someone on the stage who's blind. And as long as they see it often enough, it becomes a normality. It becomes just normal. And then we reach an inclusive society. And it's often like small things, you know, it could be like just a ramp to reach the stage, or for blind people it could be like you use a little rope and you put some tape over it, and then you have a line where blind people can navigate on, you know? And they know, all right, there's in 2 meters the stage is over. I can't get any further. I can feel it with the feet or with the stick or something else. It doesn't have to be big buildings or something. It can also be just small, cheap, things. All right. So if you have any more questions, feel free to ask for now. I'm sorry, it was pretty harder than I thought in English.
You did great. Thank you so much. No, you did great. Yeah, I don't have a question really. It's just I really appreciate the photographs that you were showing where we had to find what the problems are. And I was even reflecting on a few festivals I've been to, just because it's again, as I said, it's not things we look for in our, you know, when we're not
and maybe
aware.
You have someone in your team who...
Sure. Well, yeah, and that's also a great point. Yeah, and but it's definitely interesting me now to go out and be more aware and looking at these things, looking for these things. Yeah. So those were really helpful tools.
Good.
Thanks. Please take this from me.
Well, thank you at first. It was very interesting and also very understandable, so don't worry about the English. I have one last question about the last point, actually, about bringing artists on stage with disability. Do you have any experience with that? Or like, is there also a quote, like that's not the right word, but for example, that festivals are supposed to bring more Flinter people onto stages. Is there also something like that for people with disabilities?
A quote?
Like an amount of people that should be playing in the lineup or anything.
It's hard because you can't do it, so I don't know how many musicians with disabilities are there in the world. I know a few, but to tell someone yet you have to reach that quote for musicians with disability, I think it's not possible.
Yeah.
Because, yeah.
I mean, it's also...
You can just try to reach musicians with disability at first, but there are only a few I know which are that big that they play on a big stage. You know?
Yeah.
It's like in the metal scene, it's Possessed, the band Possessed, where the singer is also a wheelchair driver, and I'm missing the name, but we also had a blind singer in a metal band.
Nice, because I feel like that's a really big point in also making the audience more aware of people with disabilities, and that it's really something that's not normal or anything.
Yeah, right.
So I think that was a really good point.
But maybe I think it's an organizer thing, because if you make stages more accessible, more musicians more musicians want to be on a stage. But
Yeah,
it's often that they can't go on the stage because it's not accessible. You have to, the first step is do all stages accessible.
Yeah.
And then musicians with disabilities can grow, can be more famous. You can only get famous when you're on stage.
That's true.
Yeah.
I was wondering if you know if there are any funds, if you are organizing events to make your event more accessible, and what would be the steps? I mean, now I know about this initiative and you probably have a lot of stuff online, but I mean, if you organize something and you want to invest more in it to make it right, then it would of course cost more money, and it would be good to know which funds you can ask for, or if there are any organizations.
Yeah, there are sometimes, but it's Ländersache. It's often just for Schleswig-Holstein, just for Berlin, just for NRW, just for Mecklenburg. And Schleswig-Holstein had something that was for accessible infrastructure, and we tried to get something from this fund, but it was just for it was just for something like here, you know. They not for toilet, which can be everywhere, you know. We tried to get over this fund wheelchair accessible toilets, but they told us no, it has to be on one location, and it is not allowed to put them everywhere in Germany. So that, yeah.
I think the festival funding from Initiative Music, I think there's a section in which you can apply.
Initiative Music?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's, I'm in the jury of this program, and this is for musicians with disabilities, and so that has nothing to do with audience. It's for the musicians, yeah. And you can try it if you know someone with some musicians with disabilities. They can try to get over the Initiative Music.
And I think they also have this festival funding, and you could also put it in your costs there as the organizer. I'm pretty sure.
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
All right.
Just holding it.
Okay.
I also saw, do you know the band Blonde?
Yeah.
The bass player is blind.
Yeah.
And I played with him quite often, and it was even hard for him to get to the backstage.
Yeah.
So often we just set up like a table next to the stage, and then I thought, and they're quite big, but yeah.
Yeah, and backstage is even, especially when you play in the evening, it's really, really dark often.
Yeah.
And what I heard from blind people, that they can see best when it's like sundown, like not a really bright light and not dark. They need just something between, you know. And yeah, sometimes you can also help with a little light system, of course. Yeah. Because if you're on a festival where normally is growing crops and corn and whatever, it's hard to make a system for blind people on the floor. So it's nearly impossible, right? But backstage you can do much more. Yeah.
I have another question.
Yeah.
Do you have any advice for us on how to reach the right communities for people with disability? So we're doing all the steps to make it accessible, but do you have any ideas of how we could reach the right people? In terms of the audience participation.
Yeah. So first of all, of course, over via your website, you can ask even us. We can give you the connections to some communities. There are many communities like for deaf people, and we have those contacts. So if you want a specific community or more, or you use people like Raul Krauthausen here. What is his initiative? Sozialhelden. They can do something for you. So they have the connection to the community. But we do have it either.
Yeah, and in regards to, I've actually been in contact a bit with, thank you, with the organization, and specifically inquiring about regulations being able to make use of the logos that you provide and everything. And what sort of steps do we need to take for our festival to have all of these approved, like in the long term, like to have your stamp of approval, essentially? How do I go about that?
The easiest way is to talk with someone like us.
Yeah,
so,
great. Yeah, easy, done. Okay, good, we're in. Okay, and would you also have to come, for example, because I was in touch, somebody did respond to me and said they would have a number of questions that they would present to me, and would that also involve somebody coming onto the site prior to our festival?
That's the first thing. Okay. We have to see the site. The event site is two things. The website or communication has to be accessible, and the event site. And website communication, you can do it via phone or via internet, but we have to visit the event site to see where's the stages, where are the toilets, how many toilets, a big problem. It's always less toilets than you need. Often 2 accessible toilets for about 200 people, and if someone without a disability goes to the toilet, he needs about 30 seconds and is out of it. If I go to the toilet, I need 6 minutes, but I have less toilet capacity as the people without disability. So there comes 2 reasons why you need much more toilets than most of the time are available. Okay. I don't have the time. Oh, fits, right? Yeah, cool. All right. That's it. Thank you very much.